Welcome to Upstate Impact, the podcast that explores the stories of business owners, leaders, and influential figures shaping upstate New York. Each episode uncovers their path, the challenges they've faced, and the impact they're making in their industries and communities. And now, your host, Luke Cometti.
Mike Greene, thanks
Hello.
for doing the podcast, man.
Happy to do it.
We're sitting here in the cabinet room at Harvey's Garden, kind of a back room speakeasy. Was this part of the plan the whole time? It's a pretty cool room here, or was this something you added on a couple years in?
No, yeah, it was an addition, probably like a year into it. Candidly, we had a windowless room in the back of the bar. So we trying to think through, like, how do you monetize that? How do you make it a cool space that adds something to the overall business? And, we've been kind of tinkering with it over the last year or so, but we think now it's a kind of a cool space.
What's it primarily used for? Do you do private events?
Both. I mean, so we're typically open Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights for the public. They can come back here, but it's also available for rental. It's like a great space for, like, a 30-person birthday party, something like that.
Yeah. And I know you do birthday rentals outside in the main garden part too. You're about over 2 years into Harvey's Garden, correct?
Yeah.
How's it going? I mean, it's been fun to follow. It's been fun to be a part of. I come here a good amount with my family. It's a great spot to bring the kids. It's a great spot to get some good food. How's the journey been?
It's been fun. I mean, overall, it's going well. I think at a high level, like, a lot of the things we're doing are different than your traditional bar or restaurant, right? So we've been kind of trial and error in terms of how we execute things, what sort of events work and which ones don't. But we really have been trying to just kind of, like, try something cool, and sometimes people like it, sometimes no one comes, right? And so you got to kind of find that right balance.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of reasons why I like coming. Like I mentioned, it's pretty kid friendly. I mean, you have that upstairs space, one way up, one way down. As long as you watch that exit, you're probably in good shape with your kids. But I think my favorite part about this place is the beer wall. And the reason for it is, obviously, there's a bunch of beers I can try. I enjoy trying different beers. I don't have to get a full pint. I can just try one, a few ounces. But even when I've been here for, like, a Syracuse game, or even your grand opening, there's hundreds of people here. There's barely standing room. But when I wanted a beer, I could walk right up, and I'd pour myself a beer. I'd wait about 7 seconds. I mean, talk about handling a crowd. That's got to be a huge perk, and I'm sure it's something that you tell people when they're trying to do events, whether it's a university or any corporate thing. Yeah,
so to back up a little bit, like, the way we came to have that honestly came from a place of, I have no background in bar restaurant industry, right? And so I'm looking for ways to kind of streamline those operations and kind of mask the fact that I don't know what I'm doing. And so and that's kind of how I came across the beer wall, which kind of is like a, self-serve option for people. So that's what initially led me to it. But now, it was originally kind of conceived as being primarily a food truck park, and that the food trucks were going to kind of be the main draw. And that's kind of evolved into the beer wall is kind of the main thing people know us for now. So we kind of backed into that, but it does have a lot of advantages compared to a traditional service model. To your point, like, when a bar is busy, we can have 20 people pouring themselves a beer at a time, and that's nice. You can, like, we do get a lot of people sampling different stuff because, if it's like a mango cherry sour, like, you're not going to commit to a pint to that, right? But, like, I'll try 3 ounces of it. And so the weirder the beer, the better it sells here. So we're able to kind of have a different experience than a normal bar, which, like, people go up to a normal bar and ask for a sample. I always think that's weird. Like, I think it's like, like, think about a big purchase. Like, I'm going to test drive a car for 5 minutes and then I spend $40,000 or whatever. But, like, I can't commit to an $8 beer without testing it first. Like, what is that? Like, to me, I didn't love it. Right. But
that apple cherry cider, though, you may have to.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's like people, it's weird. It's like that, and it's ice cream. Like, people are like, I can't commit to this $4 cone unless I sample it first. Like, I'll just buy it and then figure it out. So we kind of solved that problem where it's like you can sample something and, you pay whatever, 30 cents or whatever it is, and then decide if you like it or not.
You do have a full bar, though. Mm-hmm. Does the beer wall take away from that? Is that, like you mentioned, that's the main focus, or is the main bar pretty popular too? I mean, obviously people like what they like to drink. So what's the average, is the beer wall the main focus, or is it kind of split?
Most of our sales are the beer wall. But we do get some people here that, don't want to use it for one reason or another. So either they're like wine drinkers or they're cocktail drinkers, or, it's like your dad who just wants his Mick Ultra and doesn't want to try the new technology. Like they just give me a can of Mick Ultra. So those other options really help when you've got larger groups and, like Grandpa's going to be here and he needs to be accommodated and we can do it that way, or, a mom or whatever. So depending on the group, we'll get higher sales if it's a charity event where it tends to skew older, then you'll get more of the traditional bar. So it's a key part of our business, but it's really exists to help kind of like accommodate the people that just don't want to use the beer wall.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a crowd pleaser in more ways than one.
And that was, initially one of the things, like, it starts the first week and people they don't like new things. And so they're like against it. And so there was like a little bit of a panic amongst staff where it's like, let's just get like a couple beers behind the bar. And that way people come up and say like, I just want a draft. And I committed to be like, no, they got to figure it out.
They got to learn.
And that, because if people had that crutch, they would take it. Right. And by being like, if you want a beer, you've got to figure this out. Because once they do it, they're like, this is so intuitive and I, can figure this out easily. But if you gave people that out, they would have taken it.
Yeah. It's not hard. It's just different, like you said. Yeah. And I do remember it's almost like you had one employee standing at that wall for the first year, just showing people, hey, you put it in here and then it counts it. But it seems like people have gotten the hang of it.
Yeah.
You mentioned you've never done a project like this, right? You haven't really been in the hospitality business at all, I think, prior to this. And I think anyone with any sort of entrepreneurial spirit has thought about opening some sort of bar or restaurant or, brewery. You actually did it. Looking back over the last couple of years, probably more than that, it's been at least a few years in the making. Talk about that process. Like, did you go in kind of, hey, someone's done it so I can do it? Or did you, always kind of for the last 10 years have this in mind? Well, talk us through it and what got you to pull the trigger? What kind of aligned to make this, a success of what it is today?
So I used to be on the city council. And so kind of backing up further, like how this idea comes together is when I was on the city council, I was working with a lot of the food trucks to try to do a food truck rodeo in Clinton Square. And so I got to know them through that. And then next to Harvey's is a park, and part of it, there's a dog park in there that I, from my role as a council, helped build that dog park. So I was driving by, this was a vacant warehouse, and I was always under the thought that like this would be a great place to do a food truck park. And there's similar food truck parks, in Austin and in Boulder, Colorado was kind of the inspiration I had. There was a place called Rayback Collective. So my background is also a real estate broker. So I was trying to find someone that could build this vision I had in my head, and just was unsuccessful. And so at a certain point I was just like, I'll just do it myself. And that's kind of how it came to be. So yeah, there's definitely challenges just being outside of an industry to try to like understand what it is. And I think it cuts both ways. I think there's certain things that we did because I didn't know a lot about the hospitality industry. And I wasn't afraid to like break that rule that they had that, you're not allowed to do certain things. And there's certain times where I'll try to recreate something and then it doesn't work. And it's like, well, maybe I should have listened to conventional wisdom, and that's made sense. Right. So I think you kind of find it both ways. But like the beer wall is a good example, right? That it's really challenging if you have an existing bar to all of a sudden implement that, because, how does it impact your staff? How does it impact your space? Yep. It's hard to do it unless it's a new venue.
Yeah. And it wasn't completely foreign, like you mentioned. There's, a place when I lived in Austin, there was a place right up the road that had a beer wall, and it was super popular. I went to a place in Charlotte with a beer wall, super popular. So it was, already kind of a proven method. But to your point, as an existing bar, it would be a tough implementation. Not only the change we talked about earlier, but also with the staff and everything that goes with that. So starting, hey, this is what it is, this is what we are, I think was probably a pretty good move. Yeah,
for sure. And I just think it takes some time for the staff to understand how to train people on it and how to do it. And so, it just works out better when it's a new venture.
I also think coming as an outsider, I just look at my personal story, the company we started, Get Reps, Joe Pompa, who's a CPA, and myself, who was coaching lacrosse, pretty involved with lacrosse, wanted to start a smart lacrosse ball company. And in hindsight, if we were from the industry, we probably said, this is a bad idea. But we were almost naive enough to be like, let's do it. And, 3.5, 4 years later, we actually had a ball that could, record your stats, and obviously an app that connects. And we learned a bunch along the way. And my point is, I don't think we would have ever done it, like I said, if we were from the industry. Do you think that's similar to what kind of happened here? You were an outsider just being like, hey, this is a vision. I know it can be done. Like, we knew it could be done. There were smart baseballs. We weren't just, throwing up something that might be impossible. But at the same time, what it actually took, like, was it a road that you did not expect, or was it, once you kind of got into it, it's what you thought?
I mean, there's a lot of challenges we didn't expect that we did have to overcome. I think in this industry, most of the people that are involved kind of came up through the industry. Like, they worked in kitchens, they worked in restaurants, and then at some point they opened their own place. And so that does give you kind of the experience to know how to do it, but it also gives you kind of like blinders of, this is how you do things, right? Think of it as like a, basketball program that like hires from within their coaches. Like, there's continuity, there's some thought to that, but it also means like the new idea from Florida you've never thought of, right? And so I think kind of being from outside, it did give me a broader ability to expand. I mean, the other thing I think for a lot of restaurants, like they will hang their hat on the product they're selling, right? Like, we make a good chicken or whatever the thing is. Yeah. We don't pretend that's who we are, right? We're a place that throws parties, right? And our product changes every time. I mean, the beer wall changes based on what party we're throwing. The food changes based on what truck's here. We're not trying to hang our hat on what we make. We're trying to just be a place that you come and you celebrate. And so that gives us a lot of flexibility to be really able to craft different identities based on, it's St. Paddy's Day today, and now there's going to be green beer, and there's going to be different decoration, there's going to be different music, and you come back in April, and we're going to throw an April Sours party, and it's sour beer, right? You can't do that if you're Dinosaur Barbecue and you just walk in, you're like, today it's a pizza party. Like, no, you sell barbecue, right? Yeah. And so we do have flexibility that I think a lot of other places wouldn't have.
It's almost like you're establishing being a staple of something different every time you go.
The phrase we use is we try to be a backyard party, right? So picture it's at your house and you're going to throw out your
what are we doing today?
And the celebration you throw for your kid's birthday party is different than your, SU watch party, which is different than this. And similarly, how your backyard can evolve, we think of it like that.
Yeah, that's well put. If there's a listener right now who's close to pulling the trigger on some sort of restaurant bar idea, such as Harvey's Garden, wanting to bring it to fruition, give a couple pieces of advice. What is something you should do? What is something you shouldn't do? Maybe a lesson you learned. What comes to mind when I think of, all right, hey, Mike, I want to do something similar, maybe not a beer garden, but something, of the same sort. What would you tell them?
So first of all, the stakes are really high, right? Like, we took out $1 million loan and put a lien on my house. And, if this thing failed, it was going to really have a big impact on my life. Right. And so, I would say, first of all, to not go into it lightly. And just because someone else did something and it worked out doesn't mean, like, most bars and restaurants fail. Like, that's just a fact of what it is. Right. So it's not an industry that is an easy one to work out, because there's a lot of factors beyond your control. Right. How's the economy doing? How's the neighborhood around you doing? Is there a new place that just opened up a year after you opened that's stealing your business, right? So I would say to, like, be cautious about it. I think that's what it is. But of course, like, it is a gratifying experience. Like, when I'm here and there's 300 people here having a good time, and you think about the positive impact you can have on people, and, they met someone and now they're friends because they met at Harvey's, or, they kind of celebrate a birthday party. And we've done everything from, like, there's been people married here, there's been engagements, there's been birthday parties, there's been funerals. Like, we've done kind of any kind of gathering you can think of, we can do. And to be able to kind of be a part of convening those people for an important moment in their life is really gratifying. So yeah, I would just say, think it all the way through and think about whether or not it's the right thing for your life. I mean, so here's one positive and negative I would say about it is when you own your own business, it's fun to see the results directly impact you. Like that's really good about it. The downside is you can't turn it off, right? Like there's a lot of jobs where it's like, all right, I was there till 5, I go home, I don't think about it until the next day. That's never the case in my head. Like I'll just be laying in bed and be like, oh, it'd be a sick party. Like what if we did like an underwater theme or whatever? Like it's just, you're always thinking about the thing you forgot to do or anything like that, because you're always working because you don't have a salary really. You're just kind of always working that way.
Yeah. And it almost, it reminds me of like, hey, you want to get into something. They always say, do something you love. I don't know if you're ever going to find something that you're always going to love, but when it's something that you get excited about, right? Keeps you up at night. You're thinking of a different party. Oh, we should do this, next week or, whatever it may be. Something that kind of keeps your juices flowing a little bit. I think that's probably the key, because if it's too much of a grind, if, you want to just shut it off at 5 o'clock and not think about it, probably not the best decision to maybe go head first into something like that.
Yeah. So I think it does cut two ways. One is that like when I'm working, it's not as arduous as when I'm, if you worked at like an insurance company, you don't care about insurance, but you're just there because, that's how you support your family. So like when I'm working, it's more interesting than I think for most people that are doing it. But on the flip side, it blends. Like when you're at home, I'll be like researching things that are loosely work. Like because it's an interest, you're kind of always sort of working. You're always thinking about it in a way that if you're doing something that was less passionate, you would kind of be able to like have a clear delineation between work and personal life. For me, it's always, I'm sort of like, I'll go to, Emily and I will go out to eat and I'll be like, oh, look at this. Like I'm trying to steal ideas from there. Like I'm never quite not working. Right. And that's another thing to think about.
Today's episode of Upstate Impact is brought to you by Renewal by Andersen of Central New York, the window and door replacement company setting the standard for quality and craftsmanship. If you're looking for durability, energy efficiency, and expert installation, Renewal by Andersen delivers. Their exclusive Fibrex material combines the strength of wood with the low maintenance benefits of vinyl, providing a stronger, more beautiful, and longer lasting solution for your home. With their signature service, every step, from design consultation to professional installation, is built around convenience, expertise, and long-term value. Their industry-leading process ensures a smart investment that enhances both comfort and style. Click the link in our show notes to set up a free quote today and take the first step towards transforming your home. Renewal by Andersen. Superior products, exceptional service. You have a couple partners on board. Mm-hmm. How is that? I mean, how have they been, as partners, not specifically, but like the process of, instead of you going alone in this, you have a couple partners, whether it's to bounce things off of. I think you take the lead on most of it, but just tell us a little bit about that dynamic and, is that a good thing? Is it something that you would recommend, or do you think it should be someone just trying to make it on their own?
I'm blessed that I have really good partners. So I'll just talk a little bit about them. I mean, so Kevin Joy is one of them. I went to high school with him. And so he's kind of like I would say kind of a silent partner, and, he invested in it. And so, we'll talk a decent amount about, ideas he may have or things that he think could help improve. But he's not directly involved in the day-to-day. And he's also, someone that's, I value his opinion, but he's also not like second guessing everything. And that's great to have, right? To someone that just kind of is able to trust our ability to manage the day to day. He's our merch guy. So he does all the, kind of, that's like his thing that he owns, and he does all that part of it, which is good. He does a nice job with that. And then the other one is Nick Sanford, who owns Toss and Fire Pizza. He's the president of the Food Truck Association. So, he obviously has a successful restaurant chain basically going at this point. So we brought him in kind of at the insistence of the bank to kind of have someone involved that would be, kind of have the experience to check that box to be able to help provide some guidance, which he does from a dated, he's done occasionally, but he's also very hands-off in terms of the day-to-day. So we do have a lot of kind of autonomy to be able to do it. But Nick, the biggest thing that's been helpful is he did, after year one, move in as a tenant with Toss and Fire. So they're an independent business that operates here. And that's provided a lot of stability for us in terms of the food that, food trucks, they're flaky. Like they'll oh, someone's sick or, the weather's bad. And so we'd be stuck then kind of scrambling with no food or it's a really unique cuisine that not everyone likes. And so that would go against us. Whereas now we kind of have the stability of, 98% of people like pizza. And so there's always going to be something here that you're going to like.
I think of business partners as kind of like a marriage.
Yeah.
Right. You find the right one, it's great. And it's way better than being alone in it. But you find the wrong partners and it can be quite a detriment and probably end up as a failure from a business standpoint. So, you're very fortunate to have, two partners that clearly, and it seems like they're coming from different backgrounds. They complement you well. And, everyone has their little thing that they take care of. And it seems like it works well.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I would just say for both of them is they're both kind of in this similar life stage as I am. So, I mean, Kevin and I having a place where we can have beers and let our kids come to, it's cool that we're able to kind of have that place, and we're also able to kind of come from the same experience.
Yeah, you're going to go somewhere anyway, so you might as well make it your own place.
Exactly.
How does your background in commercial real estate, your background in politics as a, city councilman, how does that help? Right? It's, it's an outsider, obviously different industry, pretty different. You could see how they kind of tie in a little bit, especially commercial real estate, getting the place going. But how has that helped you where you think if someone who was from the industry came up and ran their own business wouldn't have that experience? Talk about some things, how I think of someone who plays different sports, right? How it translates to that sport. How do different professions kind of translate to this new venture for you?
The commercial real estate is helpful, particularly in building the space, right? So in identifying the building, being able to understand what kind of changes need to happen physically to be able to make the business work, and then being able to oversee the build out and the construction of it. That was, I think, helpful just to be able to understand, how do you make this be what it is? I think it's something when you work in real estate, you're able to kind of envision, all right, here's what this building has the potential to be. So I think that part of it has been helpful. And there's also, I was just talking to colleagues that are kind of the same background as me that worked in commercial real estate that are opening hospitality business in Syracuse. So Nobody's Wine Bar downtown. One of the owners of that's a real estate guy that I know. And then the Noble Cellar, the new kind of fine dining thing, that guy's, kind of a similar background to me too, that he worked as a real estate broker. So it's a common thing somewhat for a real estate broker to kind of want to break into that side of it. And then I think the political aspect of it has been helpful in the sense that we throw a lot of parties here. We throw a lot of different events. And
yeah, I feel like the network is almost everything, because if you don't know how to do something or you don't trust yourself doing something, you're able to call someone who can either help you or put you in touch with someone who can help you. And I think going into business, that's huge. That's, like I said, you can do all the research you want. You can try to do it all yourself. But at the end of the day, I feel like people are usually good at one or two things. And then it's you got to kind of rely on the experts for each specific task. And if you have a good network to do that, then that's how you become successful.
Yeah. We play offense at Harvey's. I'll say it that way, right? I think a lot of hospitality places fail because, here's our product, here's what we want to do, and the customers just aren't coming. The industry is this and whatever, and then people just kind of let it be a slow death. That happens to people all the time. Yeah. Harvey's, we reinvent ourselves all the time. I mean, whether it's we changed the food trucks. We had an in-house kitchen for a minute that wasn't working, and then we brought in Toss and Fire. How we physically set up the space, the kind of things we do. If something isn't working, we're agile and we'll change it and we'll get it to where we are. And so I think having that broader network to be able to call people and bring them in has been helpful for us to be able to make that work.
You're always changing at Harvey's, but I think one thing that's going to stay consistent, at least from what I can tell, is that you guys will always be a Bills bar.
Yeah.
Is that true?
For sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I've been just amazed at the Bills Mafia fandom over the last 10 years. I just think of growing up, you grew up in Camillus as well. There was Bills fans, but there was Jets fans, there was Giants fans, Eagles fans, Cousin McNabb. But over the last 10 years, just the amount of Bills fans that I know now, and not only Bills fans, hardcore Bills fans, is wild. And I mean, what do you attribute that to? Just as an owner of a Bills bar, what do you think that comes from? It's wild.
I think to step back a little bit, I mean, this is something Kevin and I wanted to do because we're both Bills fans, and we thought it'd be cool to like have a place to watch the game.
A big part
right?
of it, yeah.
And we also, when we were in New York City, like there were a couple of hardcore Bills bars, and the experience to be able to watch the game with other fans is superior to just watching on your couch. Like it's just very fun to be able to cheer with other people. So we were trying to recreate that here. I grew up an Eagles fan. My mom's from Philly. And then I went to UB my freshman year, and, the Mafia is so crazy that I was like, this is sick. I'm going to do this. So that's how I came. But I think being away from upstate New York and New York City, where you're kind of not surrounded by a lot of Bills fans, in some ways made me a bigger fan, just because it kind of became a more unique part of my identity that, like, okay, on Sunday we're going to go with other people from upstate New York and watch the game. So that's what made me into a bigger fan. But I also think it's just that they're like good now. Like it's easy to be like, okay, Josh Allen's the man. Like, let's go watch this game versus like, I'm at the Ralph watching JP Lossman throw interceptions. Like, who wants to watch that, right? So, I think it's just that they're good, and they're a fun team to watch too, right? They're like very likable team, and so it's an easy team to cheer for.
You're right. They're, I wouldn't say I'm a hardcore fan, but I enjoy watching them win. I enjoy watching Josh Allen play. They're kind of an underdog because they haven't been in the Super Bowl in 30-something years, and they've never won a Super Bowl. So I think not only do you have the support locally, but across the country, people usually root for the underdog. So I think they have that going for them. And plus, it's funny, some of the content posted. I was researching ChatGPT's estimate for how many tables that have been broken is over 20,000 from Bills fans. It's a lot of tables, and that's a lot of funny videos, and I hope people didn't get too hurt doing that, but I think you've broken a few here.
We did do one season opener. We had someone jump through a table.
Yeah, it's fun, and like you said, I think it's a good point. When you're, it's fun watching the game no matter where you are, but when you're with people rooting for the same team, just the energy, it's something to do. It's something to do on a Sunday. It's, something you were looking for, and clearly you've established it.
We have some hardcore people that come every week too, and that are very intense, and that makes the atmosphere a lot better too, that they're like screaming and yelling and stuff like that. So we're blessed to have a couple of regulars that are kind of setting the tone for us.
That's awesome. One final thing I wanted to touch on, sidewalk hospitality. I think this is a recent thing you launched, something that, you could talk about it more, but it seems like to be more of like a parent company for Harvey's and potentially more.
Yeah. So, what I'm passionate about is kind of building third spaces that are, places away from your home or work that people get together and you can build community and bring people together. So the success we've had at Harvey's, I think, has taught me lessons that I'd want to bring to other places, particularly in Central New York, where I just want there to be cool things, right? So I am working on a project now in downtown Syracuse. It's an old church called Mizpah Tower. And it's just this beautiful sanctuary space that's been vacant for 30 years. So right now we're working on trying to turn it into like a wine bar. We're calling it a wine sanctuary and an event space. So it'll be a place that you can rent out for weddings and corporate events and charity events, those kind of things. But then a certain number of days a week it'll be open as just a wine bar with we're going to have self-pour wine machines too. So kind of use some of the similar model that we had at Harvey's. Which I think works well for wine in particular. People are used to tasting wine, so you're not like teaching people a new concept there. But the space itself lends itself to kind of a more formal drink like wine. So yeah, it's right in the middle of downtown, and I think if you see the space, it kind of speaks for itself. It's a really, really cool space. So something I'm really excited about. So the idea of sidewalk hospitality will kind of oversee both of those, and then maybe down the line other things, and you kind of use economy of scale to be able to, at someday, like have one HR person, have one, kind of social media person, and kind of be able to oversee multiple things.
Yeah. And I imagine you would be open to partnering with people who, sure, taking what you've learned, maybe they bring something specific that would be good for this new venture. And it's just a great way to kind of open the doors for new projects for you. And then, who knows who gets in front of you to be able to add more spaces here to Central New York that we're all looking for.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I am looking for a couple people to partner with me on it. Like I said earlier, for Harvey's, we took out a loan on everything, and Emily doesn't want to do that twice. So that's why we're like trying to bring in a couple other people just to kind of, spread it out a little bit. But yeah, it's got a lot of potential, I think, just because when you look at the building we took here, it's just like a metal box in the middle of a neighborhood where there's nothing around it, right? And so kind of the ball of clay we were working with was a little more limited versus this is kind of this beautiful church in the middle of downtown. So there it's more about kind of like letting the building shine through versus here is more about like, well, how can we get this to look decent, And so it's a different approach, but it's exciting.
Will it also be a Bills bar?
No, I don't think this one's
different crowd
for that. Yeah. But similar, like there's a lot of things we could do there that we can't do here. I mean, so it was a theater in the 90s, and they had like the Goo Goo Dolls played there and the band, and they had like real acts come in there. And so it's a big 2-story auditorium setup. So there's a lot of things we could do there that we can't do here.
You think you'll lean into the history a little bit? I mean, kind of like you did with Harvey's Garden, the first mayor here in Syracuse, but that actually has, the footprint and the structure of history. Is that something you plan on doing?
Yeah, I mean, so it has been neglected a little bit inside, but my plan is to kind of let that show through almost, right? Like I think there's one story you can tell that would be, let's bring the building back to what it was, and it was exactly like the 1950s. To me, it's a more interesting story to just kind of be like, yes, this building's been neglected for a while, but it's still really cool and interesting, and show the scars of it, because that's a better story to me than trying to pretend like everything's okay and it's the 1950s.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Mike, best of luck. It sounds super exciting. I'm sure people will be following you, and we'll have to have you on again to give us an update. But thanks for the time. And,
yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
That's it for this episode of Upstate Impact. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, make sure to subscribe and share. Stay tuned for more stories from the people shaping upstate New York. See you next time.